excited to kick off the product track, and we are going to have some amazing speakers today. I've already seen all the slides, super interesting. So let's get started right away. Very happy to introduce you, Genny Orser, VP of Marketing of Mappedin. And I'll just get her on stage. There you are, Genny. Let's
Hi, Massimo.
With the slides. Ciao.
Awesome. Will do. All right.
And in the meanwhile, whatever question you have for Genny, just write them in the chat at the end of the presentation. We'll reserve 5 minutes for Q&A. All right.
Great. Okay. All right. Perfect. And stop me, Massimo, if there's any glitches along the way. But happy to be here and excited to chat with everyone today and excited to learn from everyone else's hot takes as well. So my name is Genny Orser. As Massimo said, I'm the VP of Marketing at Mappedin. And today I want to talk about why you're not as customer-centric as you think. So like I said, VP of Marketing, unique part about my role at Mappedin is that I oversee both the marketing function as well as the product management function. So, a relatively unique setup, I think, for a VP of Marketing, but it certainly pertains to the hot take that I have and some of the things and points that I want to hit on today. So Mappedin is a indoor mapping software company. We are a B2B company, mainly selling into enterprises, and we are kind of currently, I would say, like sales-led growth model. So all important kind of details to keep in mind as I talk through my hot take and some of the unique setup that we have. We're also relatively small still. We're just shy of 100 people. We'll be well over 100 people this year. Really quick, interesting fact about me is that I've been a competitive horseback rider my whole life. I have a lot less time for that today, but I still try to find the time to fulfill that passion and hobby where I can. So let's dive right in. My take today really comes from this realization that I think it's easy to get caught in the trap of thinking that being customer-centric primarily lies on your traditional customer teams, customer success and support, and your sales team, the teams that are talking to customers on a day-to-day basis. But I've really come to realize in my current role that, with product and marketing, having a front row seat to why I think that there are other teams within your organization that can naturally be more customer-centric, and certainly should be. So, of course, when I look at both of the product and marketing function at Mappedin and how they work together, both of these teams are living in the middle of your frontline traditional customer teams. So marketing working so closely with sales on a day-to-day basis, and your product groups working really closely with your customer teams to really make sure that we're providing the value to the customer through our product that we want to be. And both of these teams, I think, have more shared goals than sometimes we realize or give them credit for. So certainly, needing to have a great understanding of your market, arguably a better understanding of the market than anyone else in your organization, a good understanding of your customers, which we'll dive into more, and of course, just the ability of your product itself. And so my take on this is really that I think companies, especially companies that are, around our size, let's call it around the 100 mark, can naturally be more customer centric by having product and marketing working within one team, or as I like to call it, under one virtual roof. And to dig into that a little bit more, I think that these teams together really cover the needs of your entire customer lifecycle. So within Mappedin, our marketing team is constantly seeing day to day the leads that are being driven through our marketing group. We have a really healthy inbound marketing pipeline at Mappedin. And so our team is living and breathing that every day. They're seeing what those new leads are asking for, what problems they're trying to solve. And your product team is constantly seeing the needs of your current customers and how those needs evolve and change over time, of course, to evolve your product and your roadmap. And so the real learning for me has been that sitting within one roof and on one team, I think has encouraged just the most heightened organic communication that could exist between these two groups, between your product and your marketing group. And this is a point I want to dig into a little bit further. So I know that many organizations, especially once you get to a certain size, of course, you have a product marketing function. I think it's a really, really important function. It's something that we now have at Mappedin, but we didn't until pretty recently. And without that function, replacing that organic communication with traditional documentation, right? So product puts together positioning documentation and product handoff documentation that goes to your marketing team. Well, that's great. And I think that's a practice we should still do. It's something that we do today. It still is going to filter out some of the true day-to-day that's actually happening on the product side, and vice versa on the marketing side. And so I think that organic communication is just really hard to replace with pretty much anything else, and certainly hard to replace with documentation. Although I would love to hear other people's thoughts on creative techniques and ways that people have helped solve this problem. And ultimately, this has just led to stronger alignment on the product that you're delivering and how it's actually serving your customer base. And so really in practice, I think that this all amounts to really a marketing strategy and product roadmap that ideally better resonates with your future and your current customers, really making sure that we're kind of covering all bases there. And that your teams, your product and your marketing teams, are starting to be able to build up better intuition about what is happening day to day with your current customers, and your product team being able to build up better intuition about what are those future customers, what do they look like, what are their needs, and how does that differ from our current customer base today. And ultimately, I think that's led us to be able to drive a clear value prop that's backed by our current customers. So value props and benefits, I think in marketing, it's amazing how you can put something together and think it makes so much sense. But then when you actually see how the customer is using your product and what their feedback is and where they're truly gaining value, that can evolve over time. And so again, having these two teams work so closely together, I think has allowed us to adapt that value prop and make sure that we're communicating it in as clear of a way as we possibly can on an ongoing basis. And of course, just ultimately being able to write better content, of course, as part of that. And on the product side, being able to build roadmaps that are so much more holistic in nature and not getting kind of sucked into that trap of building roadmap that's solely focused on your current customers. And there's good reason why that happens, because your current customers are paying you. You want to make sure that they're happy. You want to make sure they're getting value out of your product. But your roadmap has to also include those things that are going to be important for the next phase of your customer base that is ultimately going to allow your business to grow and scale. So really making sure that you have balance across the two is of course important. And I think that is, happens more naturally. I've seen it happen more naturally by having those two groups working together day in and day out, sitting on daily stand-ups together. It's amazing the dialogue that can happen between those two things, those two teams, and the benefits that can come out of that. And so I think really my key takeaway here is just that bringing product and marketing teams together, while maybe a little bit unique, I know it's not the most traditional setup, I think can really actually benefit how customer-centric your business is as a whole. And before I hand it back off for Q&A and commentary, I think it's also worth mentioning that this isn't the only setup that I think works for product. I think that it's obviously so natural for product teams to report into engineering. And I think there's so much benefit for why an organization would do that, why we might do that at some point. But I think some of these key takeaways that I've learned by having product and marketing together are something that I'd love to continue digging in on, how you can replicate that regardless of what your setup looks like.